If I drag it to this side, you'll see that it's going to look for that particular category within this. Obviously, the last part of it is that, hey, how do we create dummy variables out of this, right? So obviously, let me begin with, cabin or something like that, and show you some of the examples with cabin and all of that. And with those, you'll be able to create the rest of them, right? So what we do is generally I take these variables, right? And if you want to create dummy variables or do one-hot encoding, right? How do we do it? I'm just going to paste these values and transpose it like this, right? And then what I'll also do is that I will insert another column here, and then I'll create a variable, variable in terms of with all of these characters, right? So I'm going to say is equal to cabin underscore, right? And I'm going to give this particular value here, right? So basically these many columns that I'm creating. And remember, we do n-1, so I'm not going to do one more, this m category here. So I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to use these many categories that are available here, right? So how do we do that, right? If this cabin value that we have here, right, is equal to the above category here, right? I'm going to fix this to the row part of it here, right? Then 1 else 0, right? So that's what one-hot encoding is, right? Basically, what you do is you take the categories column wise, and then you take the categories column wise, and then you sort of create variables such as like this, right? And if I just drag it along this particular categories, you'll see that it's going to do the same thing and identify. I'm going to have to fix this with the column. If I drag it to this side, you'll see that it's going to look for that particular category within this. And if it's sort of finding it, then it's going to be marking it 1, else it's going to be 0, right? So this is what is one-hot encoding, right? If you're sort of summing up all of these categories together, it will match what you have it within the camera, right? And that's how we create like dummy variables, right? So even for the title, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to be doing, right? So I'm going to say, copy this here, and I'm going to just rename this to title, and then have these categories that are available within this, right? So that's the process in which we basically create all of these dummy variables process. And I'm just going to replace this column with this particular column here, so that we are creating dummy variables for the title variable, right? And that's the process I'll use to basically create all the dummy variables and so on and so forth, right? And you'll see that with this process, right, the entire end process will somewhat be looking like this. Yes, it does. Mohammed Miraj, yes, it does. So hence what we do is we try to build models and identify and recursively identify, check out those variables that we don't necessarily want. Yes. I mean, there are a lot of processes that sort of creates dimensionality, but with this particular data, right, we sort of already took care of it in terms of doing certain features that we create, right? So we reduce the categories anyways while we are extracting the features itself, right? So we kept a tight number of features, which sort of ultimately will help us to have more a reduced number of categories versus having so many different categories, right? So obviously with that, there will be so many other things that are getting created, and that's how the one-hot encoding process looks like, guys, where we sort of in summary, in theory, right, what we did is we basically took all the features, did the missing value imputations. Again, we did a rough job at it. Then we also took, extracted certain features from ticket or title or cabin, and then we did finally the one-hot encoding piece of it, right? So that way, we did some bits and pieces of EDA also, not exactly full-fledged, but yes, we did some of those things that are available with us, right? So far, and all of this is done within Excel, right? The whole idea was to, sort of give you a flavor of what it all looks like within Excel itself, right? And hopefully I was able to provide you certain information on how this feature engineering process looks like within it, right? Now, that being said, right, here a lot of people have, also commented on, things like dimensionality reduction or like categorizing, choosing the best probability rates. There's a lot of tweaks that you can provide, and I'm definitely not, rejecting all of those things. But in this scenario, this is what we had this much time to do certain things, and I was able to like hopefully give you the focus on how the feature engineering missing value treatment can be done with using Excel. Right now, to bring this sort of concept home, I've already built the model, and the whole purpose was not exactly to look at this model here. And I've written a simple code, which is again given to you in the GitHub link that I have provided. In case you need that, I'll provide it again towards the end of the session. But what I've done here is I've sort of written a Python code to build on this particular data, right? So I've already have this particular data imported within this. I have already one version. I'm going to import it, do the X, Y variables classification. Then I'm going to do the test and train, right? And I'm going to take a random forest classifier. I know I said that we can do logistic regression, but in this random forest classifier are definitely good in this particular model, right? Then I'm going to pick like a randomized search CV, which is again takes a lot of it takes a lot of it takes shorter time to execute, and hence that particular case. And then take all the parameters, and then take the base model, create the random forest grid with randomized search CV, give the model, take the parameter distribution in terms of all of these. I'm going to use all of the hyperparameters that are there. And again, these are just random placements here. Cross validation of 3 verbose is equal to true. And just do that and build the model, right? So we have like roughly 10 candidates and around 30 fits. So it's basically running and building the model, right? And once the model is built, we'll look at the best estimator for this, right? I take the best estimator, build the model again on top of it, right? And then fit the model, predict our Y prediction, right? And look at the test and train scores, right? So you'll see like, 85 or 80, test score is around 85, train score is around 85. Again, this is a very rare scenario. This, unfortunately, it came at 85 and 85. But yeah, I mean, this again, the modeler's dream to have both test and train at the same same levels. But again, yeah, it usually doesn't come on this particular scenario, right? But you'll see higher train scores and test scores, right? And then what you do is you predict on the test data, right? So on the test data, when I say is the one that the competition gave us, right? So if you look at that, you'll see that the survival rate is not given, and which is what we are trying to predict here, and then create a file that sort of encompasses all the work that we have done using Excel, and then predict it, and then give us a score file, right? So the output file will be looking somewhat like this, where you have like the passenger ID and the survival rate that is available, right? And I went ahead and basically in going to the Kaggle competition, and I made that submission, right? And the submission will roughly give me around 0.789 score, which is a decent score, right? With all the tweaks that you guys have mentioned, definitely you can see the possibilities of sort of improving score just by doing feature engineering within Excel itself, right? There are some times where I've got 0.79 also, and above 0.8 also, right? 0.83, 0.82, all of those scores are also possible. But again, you have to do all of those tweaks that a lot of people mentioned here, right? So with this sort of bringing all these concepts to home with feature engineering on all of that, I'll just like to summarize in quick steps that what we did so far in this particular session, right? So what we did is, hey, we did the missing value treatment with the numerical features, categorical features. We recoded some of the variables like the gender variables, right? They were like male and female, which was done by the one-hot encoding itself. We extracted new features from numerical features like family size, is alone. We also did some extracted categorical features from cabin, ticket, or the titles that we have here. And also we created dummy variables using Excel, and then we loaded all of this information, all the engineered features within Excel, and then built a model on Python, submitted that to Kaggle to roughly reach a score of this particular thing. And there's a lot of these things. So these are the things that are like possible within this particular thing, right? And then we got a public score of this. Now you'll see that there is a difference between the score that we have within Python and this. That's because Kaggle, the platform, uses 50% of the observations to score and get you a public score, and that's where the reduction in score, right? So not all the observations are used to score on the Kaggle itself, and that's where the scores are different from there. Yes, that's right. So all the dummy variables are created on Excel, and then your final step is basically done on Python, right? So with this, guys, I have basically spoken about what I have, for this particular session. And obviously, I leave the forum open for any questions that is there.
Thank you, Kunal. I hope everyone had a great session, knowledgeable session. We have got 7 questions in the Q&A. If you can answer those.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we have okay, channel link is provided. Why medium and what for fair? Yeah. Hey, Anamika. So if you Anamika asked a question: why median and not mode for fair? Right? Again, yes, very valid question. Median, mean, mode, whichever it is, you can use. Right? So the answer to that is, hey, look at the skewness of that particular variable. Right? If it is like normally skewed, then mean, median, mode will do, right? But if it is like left skewed or right skewed, then median is a much more better representation in terms of imputing with that particular thing. And since we had like 2 imputations, hardly any imputation that you do will create that much matter, right? So that's what it is. Ranchit asked, do we need fair variable for P class variable is as P class variable is sufficient enough to provide requirement information? Yes, we require fair variable, Ranchit, because again, within 1, 2, and 3, there are some class differences, right? So even if you have like a middle class, there will be some range difference within the fair, right? It's not that 1, 2, and 3 are like neatly categorized, right? So with fair, yes, you get much more detailed in terms of the class. Okay, some people are saying they are not very good at Excel. So for that particular thing, guys, hey, some of the things are very few, the basic ones that I have used here, right? And that will be basically in terms of like sum ifs, Excel, if sum ifs, ifs, substitute, and all of these functions that we have used, right? So the file that I have uploaded on the GitHub link, you'll have all the functions available, right? And there's a playlist in my YouTube channel where I speak about, take you to this steps thoroughly within this particular thing, and you can have a look at those Excel functions that are there, right? But with the Excel file, you'll be able to see that whichever functions I have used, just Google all of those functions, and you'll see that they're very simple to use and they're intuitive also. If you have a lot of categories, for a column, should we create dummy variables for that column? The better process, Atul, is to basically first reduce the number of categories, right, and then create dummy variables, right? That way, you're going to be much more better off. Okay. A few more questions. How will M as a level in Cabin help in the predicting? I did not. So M, like rather than getting rid of the Cabin column, right? We are sort of keeping one more. We are treating missing value as one more category, right? And sort of it sort of gets kicked out in terms of when you're creating dummy variables, because we have that n minus one principle, right? We don't take all the all the categories for dummy variable creation. So it anyways gets chucked out, but rest of the information at least is there for us to build in the model, Akshay. Okay, Abhishek, some of these things have been answered, so I'm just going to skip that. Okay, Dimple, this question, how do we work with categories which are not present in trained data but present in test data? Yes, if you do pipelining technique, you'll see that some of the new categories that are available within test or not available within test, right? We simply ignore those categories overall, right? So we only go with the ones that are available in trained data set. And hence what I did is in the initial steps itself, I created, combined both test and train and created the W variable such that, we don't get into this particular issue, right? This is particularly in case of Excel, but Python and R, you can better handle those. Machine learning models cannot be built on Excel. This is an anonymous attendee. Raviraj, multiple models in a single file on Python can be created. The score will definitely, have, you're going to only submit ultimately one score. Multiple models can be built, but the score submission will be one. So try and submit, and you'll basically see which of them are giving a good score. Okay, some of them I'm going to skip. Okay, some Kalyan is saying, is it good to do EDA in Excel before doing stuff in Python? Yes, you get a visual cue of how things happen in feature engineering and missing value treatment and all of that. And it sort of helps you appreciate how Python has sort of evolved in terms of doing a lot of things within Python, right? And R, right? It sort of gives you appreciation for how things are getting done. Okay, links will be provided, guys, by co-learning lunch. So definitely, that's possible.
Yes, Kunal will be sharing the links with all the attendees after the session. Yeah,
correct. Okay, some of the questions I've answered. Some of them are repeat. Okay, my links will be provided, guys. My channel links and all that will be provided after the session. And some of the links are present on the screen here. Okay, brief overview use of one-hot encoding. Okay, one-hot encoding, Shihan, I think so you can Google about that. Not necessary now that I'm going to do that.